Clint Eastwood saw a homeless man outside his studio and stopped. Most people would walk past, but what Clint did next changed everything. He didn't just help the man. He went home, rewrote an entire movie based on that one conversation. That movie, Gran Torino. One of the most powerful films ever made, about redemption, about broken men finding purpose. But here's what nobody knows. That homeless veteran wasn't just inspiration. He became part of the story, in ways Hollywood never saw. If stories about how art comes from real human connection move you, subscribe to Eastwood and Legends. Because the best films aren't just made, they're lived first. Hit that bell, so you don't miss what happens when compassion meets creativity. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March 2007, Los Angeles, California. Clint Eastwood was 76 years old, still working, still creating, still searching for stories that mattered. He'd been in a story meeting at Warner Brothers Studios all morning. Development executives, pitching ideas, scripts, concepts. Nothing felt right. Nothing had that spark, that truth, that made him want to spend a year of his life making a film. Around 3 p.m., he walked out to his car in the parking lot, frustrated, restless, feeling like he was wasting time. That's when he saw him. A man sitting against the wall, near the studio's back entrance, older, weathered, wearing a faded military jacket that had seen better days. A small cardboard sign beside him, handwritten, barely legible. Veteran. Anything helps. God bless. Most people in Los Angeles had learned to not see homeless people, to look past them, through them, around them. It was easier that way, less uncomfortable. But Clint stopped. He stood there for a moment, looking at the man. Something about the military jacket. Something about the way the man sat. Shoulders back despite everything. Military bearing still there after all those years. Clint walked over. "Sir," he said quietly. The man looked up, surprised that someone was actually speaking to him, not throwing change, not hurrying past, actually speaking to him. "Yes?" His voice was rough, unused to conversation. "You served?" Clint asked, nodding at the jacket. The man's eyes, clouded with years of hardship, flickered with something. Pride, maybe, or pain, or both. "Korea," he said. "1st Marine Division, 50 to 53. Clint nodded slowly. He'd made films about war, played soldiers, directed stories about combat. But he'd never served himself, and he never pretended otherwise. "Can I sit?" Clint asked. The man blinked, confused. "Here? If you don't mind." The man gestured to the concrete beside him, still uncertain if this was real. Clint sat down, right there on the ground, his back against the studio wall. A 76-year-old Hollywood legend, sitting with a homeless veteran. "What's your name?" Clint asked. "William," the man said. "William Park. Korean American?" "Yes, sir. My parents came from Seoul. I was born in Oakland." "That must have been something," Clint said. "Going to fight in Korea, seeing where your family came from." William's face clouded. It was complicated. And then, perhaps because it had been so long since anyone actually listened, perhaps because Clint's quiet presence made him feel safe, William started talking. He talked about growing up in Oakland in the 1930s, being one of the few Korean families in the neighborhood, about joining the Marines at 18, wanting to prove he was American, wanting to serve, about landing in Korea in 1950, seeing villages that looked like where his parents had come from, fighting in places his grandparents might have walked, about the cold, the brutal cold that never left your bones, about losing friends, watching kids barely older than teenagers die in snow and mud, about coming home in 1953 to a country that didn't celebrate Korean War veterans, didn't really acknowledge the war at all. It wasn't like World War II, William said. Nobody had parades for us. Nobody cared. It was just, come home, get back to normal, don't talk about it. How do you not talk about it? He asked, his voice cracking. How do you not talk about watching your best friend die? Clint sat quietly, letting the man speak. I tried, William continued. I got a job, got married, had kids, tried to be normal. But the dreams, the nightmares, they never stopped. I'd wake up screaming, scaring my wife, scaring my kids. Started drinking to make it stop, to sleep without seeing it all again. Lost my job, lost my wife, lost my kids. They tried. God knows they tried. But I was too broken. And now, he gestured at himself, at the concrete, at the cardboard sign. Now this is all that's left. Clint was quiet for a long moment. Around them, people walked past, to and from the studio. Nobody stopping, nobody looking. Your kids, Clint finally said. Where are they now? William shrugged. My daughter. I think she's in San Diego. Married. Has kids of her own. She tried to help me. For years. But I kept pushing her away. Eventually, she gave up. Can't blame her. My son. I don't know. Last I heard he was up north somewhere. We haven't spoken in 15 years? 20? His voice got quieter. They probably tell their kids I'm dead. Easier that way. Clint felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a conversation anymore. This was something deeper. A story. A real story. About a man who'd served his country, come home broken, and been forgotten by everyone, even his own family. You ever think about reaching out? Clint asked. To your daughter? William laughed, a bitter sound. And say what? Hi, it's your dad, the one who ruined your childhood with his drinking and yelling? The one who chose bottles over watching you grow up? What would I say? What would be the point? Some things, he said quietly. You break so badly, they can't be fixed. Clint disagreed, but he didn't say so. Not yet. They sat in silence for a few more minutes. Then Clint reached into his wallet, pulled out several bills. This isn't charity, Clint said. Consider it payment. For what? William asked, confused. For your story, Clint said simply. He stood up, his knees protesting after sitting on concrete. Thank you for your service, William. And thank you for sharing. William looked at the money, then at Clint, recognition slowly dawning. Wait, you're just someone who listens, Clint said. And he walked to his car. But as he drove home, Clint couldn't stop thinking about William Park, about a man who'd fought for his country, come home to nothing, lost everything, and now sat forgotten outside a Hollywood studio, about the pride still visible in his posture, the military bearing that decades of hardship couldn't erase, about the pain in his voice when he talked about his kids, the resignation, the belief that some things were too broken to fix. That evening, Clint sat in his home office, staring at a script he'd been developing, a screenplay called Gran Torino, written by a young screenwriter named Nick Schenk. It was about an old man, a Korean War veteran, dealing with his past, living in a changing neighborhood. Clint had liked the bones of it, but something hadn't clicked. The main character, Walt Kowalski, felt too much like a type, the grumpy old racist who learns to be better. It was a story that had been told before. But now, after talking to William Park, Clint saw something different. He saw a man who wasn't just grumpy, but broken. A man who hadn't failed to change with the times, but had been destroyed by war and forgotten by his country. A man who'd pushed away his own family, not because he didn't love them, but because he didn't know how to live with what he'd seen. A man looking for redemption, for meaning, for one last chance to matter. Clint opened his laptop and started rewriting. He wrote through the night, reimagining Walt Kowalski, no longer just a prejudiced old man, but a veteran haunted by the Korean War. Someone who'd killed, who carried that weight every day. Someone who'd come home to a country that never thanked him, to a family that never understood him. Someone who'd become hard, closed off, angry, because it was easier than being vulnerable. By morning, Clint had transformed the script. Walt Kowalski wasn't just inspired by William Park, he was William Park. The military bearing, the pain, the isolation, the broken relationship with family. Even small details, the way Walt sat on his porch, watching the neighborhood change, not really seeing people, because he'd stopped letting himself see people years ago. All of it came from that conversation on the concrete outside the studio. 2 weeks later, Clint went back to the studio. He parked in the same spot, walked to the same wall. William was there. Same spot. Same cardboard sign. "William," Clint said. The older man looked up, recognition and surprise crossing his face. "You came back?" "I did," Clint said. "I want to show you something." He pulled out a script, the revised Gran Torino, opened to a specific page. "I want you to read this." William took the script, confused, started reading. As he read, his expression changed. His hand started shaking slightly. This is you," Clint said quietly. "The main character, Walt Kowalski. He's a Korean War veteran. He's haunted by what he did, what he saw. He's pushed away his family, lost everything that mattered. And the story is about him finding one last chance at redemption." William looked up, tears in his eyes. "Why?" "Because your story matters," Clint said. "Because what happened to you, what happened to so many veterans, needs to be told. Not as a statistic, not as a news story, but as a human being. Someone people can see themselves in, can understand, can maybe forgive." William was quiet, staring at the script. "Is this really going to be a movie?" "I'm going to direct it," Clint said, "and star in it. We start shooting in a few months." Then Clint did something else. "I also want to help you," he said. "If you'll let me." William's defenses went up. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity," Clint said. "Consider it consulting. The movie's about a Korean War veteran. I need to get it right. I need to understand what it was like, what you went through. Will you help me?" It was a gentle fiction, a way to offer help without stripping dignity. William understood, but appreciated it. "What would I have to do?" "Talk to me," Clint said. "Come to my office once a week. Tell me about Korea, about coming home, about everything. And in exchange, I'll make sure you have what you need. A place to stay, food, medical care if you need it." William stared at him for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" Clint thought about it. "Because you served your country, and your country forgot you. And because some things aren't as broken as we think they are." Over the next 4 months, William Park came to Clint's office every week, sometimes twice a week. They'd sit, sometimes for hours, and William would talk about the frozen hell of the Chosin Reservoir, where Marines fought in 40 below temperatures, about the guilt of survival. Why did he make it when so many others didn't? About the things he did in war, the people he killed, the faces he still saw in dreams, about coming home to a country that had already moved on, that didn't want to hear about Korea, about watching other wars get recognition, Vietnam veterans getting support groups and therapy, while Korean War veterans were called the Forgotten War, about trying to be a father and husband while carrying all that weight and failing at both. And Clint listened, took notes, but more importantly, saw William Park start to change. The act of being heard, of being seen, of having someone treat his story as valuable, it did something. William started sitting up straighter, speaking more clearly, looking Clint in the eye. Clint also kept his promise. He set William up in a small apartment, nothing fancy, but clean, safe, warm. Made sure he had food, clothes, medical care. Connected him with a VA counselor who specialized in PTSD. And one day, about 3 months into their meetings, Clint asked the question, "Your daughter, have you thought about calling her?" William's face tightened. "We talked about this." "I know," Clint said, "but I've been listening to you talk for 3 months now. And you know what I hear? A man who loves his kids, who made mistakes, but who never stopped loving them. Your daughter, she tried for years to help you. That doesn't sound like someone who doesn't care. That sounds like someone who was hurt, but who hasn't given up." William was quiet. "What if she doesn't want to hear from me?" "What if she does?" Clint countered. "What if she's been waiting, hoping, for you to reach out? What if giving her that chance is part of your redemption too?" It took William another week to work up the courage, but finally, he called. Clint wasn't there for that conversation, didn't need to be. But a few days later, William came to their meeting, and he was different. Lighter, younger somehow. "I talked to my daughter," he said. "She cried. I cried. We talked for 2 hours. She wants to see me. She said she never gave up on me. She said she was just waiting for me to be ready." His voice broke. "I have a grandson. Did you know that? He's 7 years old, and I've never met him. But I'm going to. She's bringing him next weekend." Clint smiled, that slight Clint Eastwood smile. "That's good, William. That's real good." They filmed Gran Torino in summer 2008, in Detroit. Clint played Walt Kowalski, the broken Korean War veteran searching for redemption. Every scene, every line, carried the weight of William Park's story. The pain, the guilt, the isolation, but also the possibility of change, the belief that it's never too late to matter again, to connect again, to be forgiven. The film was released in December 2008. It became one of Clint's biggest successes, both critically and commercially, over $270 million at the box office. But more importantly, it resonated. Veterans saw themselves in Walt Kowalski. Families saw their fathers, their grandfathers, in him. People who'd made mistakes, pushed others away, believed they were too broken. They saw hope. After the premiere, Clint arranged for William Park to attend a special screening. Just William, his daughter Sarah, and his grandson Michael. They sat in the theater, watching Walt Kowalski's journey. When it ended, Sarah turned to her father, tears streaming down her face. "That's you, isn't it?" William nodded. "That's all of us," he said quietly. "Everyone who came home, and didn't know how to be home anymore." His grandson Michael, 7 years old, looked up at his grandfather. "Grandpa, are you a hero?" William looked at the boy, at his daughter, at Clint sitting a few rows back, watching. "I don't know about hero," William said, "but I'm trying to be a good man. And sometimes, that's enough. Today, William Park is 82 years old. He lives in a small house in San Diego, near his daughter's family. He sees his grandson regularly, watches him grow up, tells him stories. Not about war, not about the hard years, but about second chances. About how it's never too late to reconnect, how it's never too late to matter. He keeps a framed poster of Gran Torino in his living room, not because he's proud of being inspiration for a movie, but because it reminds him that his story mattered, that his pain, his struggle, his journey meant something. That art can come from the darkest places and turn them into light. Clint still visits him a few times a year. They sit on William's porch, drink coffee, talk. No longer about the past, but about the present. About Michael's baseball games. About Sarah's new job. About the small joys of ordinary life. The life William thought he'd lost forever. The life he found again, because someone stopped, listened, and saw him. Not as a homeless man, not as a statistic, but as a human being with a story worth telling. In interviews about Gran Torino, Clint rarely talks about William Park. He keeps that story private, protects William's dignity. But once, in a quiet moment after a screening, someone asked him, "What makes a story worth telling?" Clint thought for a moment. "Pain that becomes purpose," he said. "Broken things that might heal. And the belief that it's never too late. For redemption. For connection. For mattering again." Gran Torino wasn't just a movie about an old man finding redemption. It was about Clint Eastwood seeing someone everyone else walked past. About turning one conversation into a story that touched millions. About proving that art doesn't just come from imagination. It comes from empathy, from listening, from seeing the humanity in people society has forgotten. And sometimes, the most powerful stories are the ones we find sitting on concrete, outside a studio, waiting to be heard. If this story of how real human connection creates real art moved you, subscribe to Eastwood Legends and share it. Because the best films aren't just made, they're lived first. And the best artists are the ones who never stop seeing people. Have you ever had a conversation that changed everything? Share your story in the comments.